Chairman of the Watford Borough Council, Janab Sardar Asif Khan Sahab, Leader of the Labour Group, Honourable Mr. Nigel Bell, colleagues, Professor Sham Qayyum, learned speakers, particularly Mr. Kabir Sabar, office bearers of the political parties, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good evening. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here, and I extend my heartfelt thanks to Sardar Asif Saab and his colleagues to have afforded me an opportunity to meet all of you and say a few words. But before I begin, I think the atrocities and the situation which we are witnessing in Jammu and Kashmir warrants us to express our solidarity with the people suffering there, to express our concern about the revocation of the Article 370 and 35A. So I suggest that if we express our solidarity by observing 1 minute silence for this thing, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic given to me is to just throw some facts and figures with you, particularly about Pakistan. South Asia used to be boom, if you recall, in the Mughal Empire's time, Aurangzeb, Rahmatullah alayh, when he was running Sharia compliant economy in the subcontinent, and it used to be 25% of the world economy, greater than China, our European economy at that time. Things have changed dramatically. So I have been, since we have limited time, to focus on Pakistan. So I'm sure that most of you, as you are very well connected with back home friends here, they take keen interest in Pakistan economy. We witnessed that after the transition from a dictatorship to a democratic era, 2008 and 2013, 5 years, things were moving. But before the general election 2013, Pakistan was predicted to declare default, as one of the honorable speaker has indicated, and it wasn't required to be a rocket scientist to know that why would Pakistan default. Before the general elections 2013, the inflows from all international financial institutions have ceased. Almost January 2013, IFC, IBRD, IMF, World Bank, Asian Development Bank, there were no new inflows. So all these institutions know what are the liabilities to be paid by Pakistan in the next year. Even today they would know which payments are due for payment to the international financial institutions. So they predicted that within 6 months, Pakistan would go for default, and they predicted our foreign exchange reserves would be somewhere around, with the central bank, which is named the State Bank of Pakistan, would be around $3 billion. Let me today share this historic fact with you. Yes, in February 2014, we reached 2.7 billion reserves with State Bank of Pakistan and around 5 billion with the commercial banks. That's where we stood. So the prediction had come true. But after assuming office, we did not waste a minute. We did not waste, a month or a year. What we did, we just started our hard work. I remember we took office, Prime Minister took oath, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif on 5th of June 2013. I took oath with other Prime Minister on 7th of June 2013. We presented the federal budget within 5 days, 12th of June 2013. I signed off an agreement with IMF on 4th of July, understanding with the staff, IMF mission, on 4th of July 2014. You see, you should have a clarity where you're moving on. So we put in our efforts. We signed a program. We introduced Pakistan economy was known as macroeconomic unstable economy of the world at that time, with the prediction of going in default within around 6 months. So what we did, we started improving and focusing on all the economic indicators, and obviously the most important indicator of our country is the GDP growth. We inherited around 3% plus, and within 5 years, we took the GDP growth at 5.8%. The size of the economy when we took office was 22,000 billion rupees, or around $270 billion. It increased to 34,000 billion rupees, or around $330 billion. So there was a huge shift, and our focus was that we should achieve, our goal was 7%. And we were very sure, the way we were performing, that we would be able to get re-elected. Let me also remind you some of the other key economic indicators for you to compare where the country stands as of today. We inherited inflation of average 12% per annum for the period 2008-13. We delivered to the country an average inflation of 4.8%, and when we left 2018, the federal government, the inflation in Pakistan was 4%. Today, my heart bleeds when I see that the core inflation is 14.6%. The food inflation, which is the key requirement of a common man, he doesn't care about economy. He wants 2 square meals in a day with peace of mind. We left at 1.8% food inflation, and today in the urban areas, the food inflation is 19.8%, and in rural areas it is 23.8%. Imagine, when you must be viewing the television programs, I'm sure you must be watching people's reaction. And the reactions are because they do not have, 2 square meals a day now. Even the upper middle class is suffering right now. So this inflation has gone out of hands in the last couple of years. The poverty, the whole focus, the whole goal to have higher growth rate in any country is to have better per capita income, have better, life and better living, means for the common man. We have the goal to reduce the poverty. If you have growth better than the population growth rate, obviously you will improve the economy. So we worked, day in and day out, and alhamdulillah, we saw that during our tenure 2013-18, 6% of the people came out of poverty line. Almost 14 million people, they were pulled out of poverty line. It's not me. It's the World Bank report. I would not quote anything based on my self-assessment. I'll rather quote international reported items to you, figures to you, the official figures, so that there should be no controversy about anything what we discuss or what we talk today. The policy rate, obviously, there's one side is the fiscal rate, fiscal side, the other side is the monetary side. I'm sure that few bankers are here, they would understand me very categorically in clear terms. So we brought the interest rates gradually down to 6.25%. And the export refinance rate from 8.5% to 3%, the long-term financing rate from almost 9% to 3%. So the business was booming and the country was moving forward. The country obviously can be run with the revenue. You have to balance between the revenue and the expenditure. And the difference is your fiscal deficit. So from 1946 billion, in 5 years, we almost doubled the Pakistan revenue to 3,850 billion, which is simple average of 20% per annum. What happened? It was claimed that if our friends from PTI win the election, they will double it in the first year. The revenue would be doubled in the first year. I'm sure you know the outcome of the first year. In the last few decades history, it has never happened that Pakistan had less revenue than the previous year, taxes collection. It is a rare year, 2018-19, that they were short by 19 billion even as compared to our last year, which is really worrying that instead of doubling to what was claimed to be 8,000 within 1 year, they could not even meet the last year of the revenue of the PMN government. Likewise, the second year, which is ongoing, the target which has been fixed, in my opinion, is very unrealistic. The first year, the target was around 4,500 billion, and they achieved 3,828 billion. So they were short. Right now, the IMF and the Pakistan authorities have agreed for the current fiscal year to have a revenue increase of 40%. It's mind-boggling. I mean, I have run this ministry and looked after FPR for 4 times in my life. I cannot see any miracle or magic wand happening. In the first 7 months, they have been able to achieve only 16% growth. And they are supposed to have 40% growth. At the time of budget, as I said, that they claim that they will virtually reduce the expenditure. There will be austerity across the board. But to my great surprise, very first year they completed the Prime Minister House, which is what was supposed to be a university. The budget increased by 18%. The current expenditure, they had 14% more. So on the one side, they had less revenue than even what to call the budgeted, but even last year they couldn't compare and achieve the same figure. And on the other side, they could not control the expenditure. As a consequence, Pakistan ended up one of the worst in the last quarter of a century, worst fiscal deficit, which was 8.9%. Now it's not sustainable. So what is the consequence? More loans. We have been listening, and you have been listening, from the container, right from 2014 onwards, that Pakistan has been in debt trap and Pakistan cannot sustain. Pakistan is borrowing too much. What is the final result? People's Party in their tenure, they increased. There is nothing known as reduction in debt. Although the incumbent government had promised in election that it will reduce the national debt by 10,000 billion rupees. Unfortunately, as I said, that People's Party 2008-13, the country had seen an increase of a debt of 8,500 billion. 2013-18, the country witnessed an enhancement in the growth of debt of 9,200 billion in 5 years, mind you. And it used to be protested why this is so. In a second, I'll justify why our government in 2013-18 borrowed 9,200 addition to the public debt. But let me tell you, this government has increased almost 8,500 in 1 year. Can you imagine? Where is the fiscal discipline? Where is the financial discipline? How can you afford this thing? So, as a consequence, if the PMLN was blamed to be borrowing 5 billion a day, PTI has, the current government, incumbent government has been borrowing 27 billion a day. Now, what did we deliver? I'm sure you guys must be in contact with your relatives, must be visiting Pakistan. Let me remind you, the memories are short. 2013, Pakistan was witnessing 18 hours load shedding in the urban areas and 20 hours load shedding in the rural areas. What did Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif promise to the nation? That in our tenure, we will eliminate load shedding. So let me share with you, where do we spend the money? The addition to the public debt was consumed, number one, to fight Zarb-e-Azab, the war against terrorism, and I'll come in a minute on that topic. We fought Nadul Fasad. We financed Karachi security operations to bring back the Roshni of Karachi, the lights and the business boom of the Karachi back. We added and completed the motorway in the country by connecting Lahore to Karachi motorway. We had done in our earlier tenures Lahore to Islamabad, Islamabad to Peshawar. We reduced the Gwadar to Quetta journey by putting the latest highways from 72 hours to 12 hours. We bought the Diamar Bhaja Dam. You might have seen the former Chief Justice begging from you some money, and they only collected about 9 billion or 13 billion rupees. What is 13 billion rupees in a country's life? We as a government financed to borrow to buy the land. 123 billion was given by PMLN government. The land was there. So these givers do not work. They can work for a while. What is, as I said, what is 13 billion to collect? It is disgrace for an honorable country to go and back to build the dam will be built, which is requiring almost 1,400 billion rupees with 13 billion rupees. So where is that dam? So you see, we had 2,500 kilometers roads. We had 11,000 megawatt of electricity added to the country. We have 3 power plants of the LNG. So you see, all these projects and the development required money. So we can justify, we challenge. And you might have seen that the incumbent government has set up a commission to look into the utilization of loans. We most welcome. There's no checkbook or cash with the finance ministry or the prime minister's office. It's a central bank which regulates every money, every penny which comes, either as revenue or loan goes to the State Bank of Pakistan in the people's account, which is called account number 1, Federal Consolidated Fund, FCF. Account number 1, the Central Bank of Pakistan, State Bank of Pakistan. So you see, these givers, obviously very unfortunate, but the revenue was down, and the incentives we gave and the way we performed. By the way, Pakistan never completed, even in the dictatorial times, any IMF program in its history. It is the first time in the history of Pakistan that the program we signed off, which was homegrown program, was completed also. And as a consequence, normally you would find, and I would come to that point in a minute later, that I personally believe that the negotiators should be sensible enough to negotiate and agree a program which is viable for the country. I feel disappointed many times while dealing with international financial institutions. As I said, even if the Pakistan authorities had offered them that we'll increase the revenue collection to 40%, the IMF should not have accepted that it is not possible, if they were fair. They love countries to impose the 18th century economic theories. These do not work. They have spoiled and ruined many economies. The devaluation is the mother of economic evil. Some bankers are sitting here. In in Pakistan, what we are seeing is man-made crisis right now. We could have saved ourselves from this crisis if we were prudent, regardless of the change of government. So, we had stable rupee, you all know, 104 rupee, 50 paisa rupee, and I left Finance Ministry in November 2017 because of a medical issue. And on 10th of December, please Google your Bloomberg report. 10th of December 2017, what did Bloomberg report? Pakistan currency has been most stable currency in the South Asian countries, except recent slide in Pak rupee. So we have now witnessed that that 104.50 has now reached almost, our government left at 150 after I left, around 10 rupees. But by now, it has touched 165 rupees and has come down to around 157, 156 rupees to the dollar. Now this has triggered the real problem in Pakistan. You might ask me, what's wrong, why did they do it? They claimed, and it's not me, it's one of the senior member of the Economic Advisory Committee, who on national electronic media confessed that the government decided to devalue the currency to enhance the exports. Can you ask somebody that how much exports were enhanced? The first year of this government, they had 2% negative growth, reduction in the exports. In the current year, in the first 7 months, they had less than 4% growth. And what cost? So, inexperience, incompetence, visionless, no plan, no action. Took almost a year to finalize a program with IMF. So things actually, have rolled back in the last 1 year. Negative. We have seen the foreign exchange, the foreign direct investment boomed, almost doubled in 2013-18, from almost odd billion to almost $3 billion per annum. It has already shrunk by 51% in last 18 months. You see, we were focused how to achieve the higher growth. If you recall, in 2015, we had given an agriculture package of something like 340 billion rupees to boost the agriculture. And it gave direct results. You see, the agriculture, you invest, you get the quickest, because the gestation period is much, much smaller. And we doubled the agriculture credit, roughly from 350 to 700 billion in 2015-16. So once we completed the program, which was September 2016, we had one weak area, which was exports, yes. All other economic indicators were fine. But it was also global terms of trade, which were in our favor. The prices of oil came down, the price of commodities came down. We had more quantities exported at that time, but less value. How we were managing? The current account deficit so much drummed up by this government. First year was $4 billion. The second year was $4 billion. The third year was $4 billion. The fourth year was $12 billion. Well, if you want to invest in, remove the load shedding from Pakistan, have 11,000 megawatt of energy, added to the grid station, and you want 3 LNG projects financed by yourself. You have 2,500 kilometers of roads, and you have motorways and highways. Then you need money. So nothing comes free. And you can't just construct or build or manufacture in your own country. You have, even your exports have 60 to 65% imported component. What to talk of such heavy machinery and such heavy equipment. So we had the $12 billion deficit, but that was manageable. Current account deficit, which has been drummed up. And this government has mercilessly claiming only achievement so far
is that we have reduced the current account deficit. Excuse me, have you increased this current account, reduced this current account deficit by increasing exports? No. You have mercilessly curtailed the imports. We had the maximum tariff, 20%. We gradually reduced in 5 years. They have added 7% tariff. They have added almost all items, regulated duty. There is hardly any capital goods import. So, as a consequence, you're seeing that your 5.8% growth has come down to 3.3% first year. Current year is predicted to be 2.4%. This is not my number, the government numbers and the World Bank numbers. There's no, I'm not quoting some other professionals' number who are talking of 1.9 instead of 3.3 or 1.4. No, I'm not quoting those things. Because I have to rely on, the numbers which have been made public by the government or the international institutions. So you see the problem of exports was very serious. So once we dealt with the IMF, as I said, it's the first time the program was completed. So we gave a package, if you recall, 10th of January 2017, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif gave a package we negotiated between September to January, end of December, with all Exporters Association of Pakistan, that what you require, your refund of the taxes in your inputs, that you will give us exports growth. So they promised they will give us minimum 10, they will try 15, if we give them something like 180 billion rupees of package. After Mr. Nawaz Sharif left office and Mr. Shahid Khan Abbasi took over, I was asked to beef up the package in August 2017 as Finance Minister by 67 billion. So this was the cost, 247 billion, or 10 rupees a dollar. So if they earn a dollar, they'll get extra 10 rupees, roughly on average. Some items 9.5, some 10, and I'm talking the average. What did they do? 2017-18, our last year, in lieu of that package, they gave us 13% growth. Now look at what we have paid in last 18 months. By devaluing currency almost 40%, making the prices of the daily use commodities increase by 200 to 300%. The medicines have gone up, including the life-saving drugs, from 250% to 350%. The debt without taking a penny has increased to 4,000 billion. Well, I can't understand. What is this economics? If you don't know, if you're not prepared yourself, if you're not ready to govern, at least you copy the past model. It's not the first time. So, as I said, unfortunately, we have seen a very rough period, and I'm, as a Pakistani, very concerned that which direction we are heading towards. We have one set of economic managers, they come, they negotiate, they finalize programs in almost 9-10 months, and then we replace them with another set of economic managers. So once we have second set of economic managers, we are now seeing their exiting also. The latest being the chairman FPI. So the man who had to deliver revenue could not deliver year one, is short already against 40%, only 60% growth year two, which would mean more borrowing. And they have broken all records of borrowing. Frankly, Pakistan was not in debt trap, but Pakistan is now moving towards a debt trap. We had almost 67% debt to GDP. America has almost 7%. Japan has 220%. Most of the European countries have over 100%. But now we are moving in that direction. Unsustainable debt. Because it's not invested in capital. Motorway Lahore to Karachi was built in an earlier tenure, 21 billion rupees. Today, if you construct the motorway, it will cost you 300 billion rupees. So, borrowing to invest is no harm. Borrowing to spend and finance your Ayashia and current account expenditure is not sustainable. This Pakistan is right now is fixed with this problem. You see, we have, don't forget that Pakistan stock market boomed. There was decade and a half battle between the three stock exchanges of Pakistan. When you run a country, you have to use the state rate where it is necessary in the interest of economy, in the interest of state and the interest of people in particular. So they were not merging. So once we took over, I gave a timeline and I forced them to do it and it was done. Had I left it, it would have been another decade and a half, another 15 years. After having done that, our government gave, and I was the chairman of the committee, the latest in line with the international requirement new company ordinance. After 1984, we have not given a new ordinance, company law. So we gave 2016 company law. We merged the 9 election laws which have been since 1976 running. We merged and we gave, if you recall, election law 2017. We gave a number of corporate subsidy laws. What was the result? Pakistan stock market became the top stock market in South Asia. Pakistan stock market became the fifth best in the world. Let me remind you, maybe reading these days FATF a lot. Because I think we should be reflecting where we were, where we are, where we have to move. It's not us, it's the next generations. We have to hand over a stable and strong Pakistan. When we came to power in 2013, Pakistan was in blacklist of FATF, Financial Action Task Force. And it had been in the decade before, black, grey, black, grey. We introduced laws, we took actions. 2015, we went grey. 2014, I'm sorry, after 1 year. We further worked on legal reforms, vis-a-vis, the terrorism financing and etc. We prepared a national action plan, if you recall, the famous one, 21-point national action plan, which included how we would eradicate. And in February 2015, I, as the person dealing with the subject on behalf of Pakistan, with the committee and with our financial monetary unit in the State Bank, I wrote a formal letter to the plenary in February 2015 that Mr. President and the members, Pakistan has done so in year 1 and we have done so in year 2. So we have satisfied your Asia Pacific group, which is the watchdog, which is watchdog on Pakistan. But we have intention to cleanse our country from this menace of terrorism. And I narrated few things which we would be doing as a country. And my concluding paragraph was, in view of what we have done and what we intend to do, Pakistan should be removed from the grey list. The letter was read out in the plenary of 2015 in February in Paris, and Pakistan was moved to a normal country white list. But we had to do certain actions. Since we failed, we are back in our grey. Now you must be reading the problems, and we have, very, very poor negotiators. Whether be it with IMF, be it with the financial institution, be it with FATF, I don't know. We have been having a very weak negotiation. As I said, it used to be dream of the West that would there ever be a time when Pakistan would take action against militancy in the northern areas, FATA I'm talking about. It used to be dream. We meet Honorable Prime Minister of UK, David Cameron, he would talk the same thing. We would meet Senator Kerry, the Foreign Secretary US, he would talk the same thing. We would have meetings with the White House people, the same thing. I think the credit goes to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif that he took a bold decision in June 2014 that we would launch war against terrorism in Northern India. And that was a very major decision. Our budget had been approved. I had zero provision I was asked in the relevant committee where all the stakeholders sit, Mr. Finance Minister, will you finance it? It's a huge amount, 100 billion a year. I said, yes, we will. We were told maybe 1 year or maybe maximum 2 years. Why finance for 4 years? But it's in the national interest. We have to do it. We should do it. So you saw that the dividends and the outcome was very positive. We were recognized. Almost all the rating agencies of the world, Pakistan ratings were increased, upgraded. You talk of JETRO of Japan, which is a world authority, they would say Pakistan is the second choicest place for the foreign direct investment. You talk of Atlantic media, they will say that it's a surprise, upcoming emerging market, one of the top in South Asia. You talk of Pricewaterhouse report, they predicted that Pakistan would be part of G20 by 2030. My heart bleeds when I just read 2 weeks ago that in 2034, now as a consequence of a poor performance of the last 18 months, Pakistan will be 50th economy on the globe instead of 80th economy. It's hurting. We should be cognizant as a Pakistani, regardless which party we belong to. Pakistan cannot afford this bleeding. But this is what the reality is. That now we are predicted to be 50th economy. We did a lot for the increase of business confidence. In 2017, we had 12 points notches up. Based on 2018 performance, in 2019 we have another 28 points improvement, which for one thing is very interesting. That anything, they're very happy to go and inaugurate projects which actually were launched and almost completed by PMLN. They're happy to claim that we signed with OECD the tax treaty, global treaty, and then the media exposes them. Mr. Khan, it's not you, it's Azhar who signed on 14th of September 2016. They claim that we signed with the new treaty with Switzerland, and the media exposes that they show, I'm grateful to the media, that no, they just released the signing a couple of years ago in Ministry of Finance by me and the Swiss authorities. They said that Park Suzuki has agreed to, as a consequence of new government $460 million investment. They just again, the media shows no. It's so you see, it doesn't help you. As a country, it doesn't help you. You are in a serious business. You see, if I was in private business, if I was in NGO business, if I was in donation collection business, I can sustain this sort of attitude. I cannot afford to be acting the way I'm acting. I cannot give the message to the world that the chief executive of Pakistan is saying that after Second World War, Japan and Germany have, since they have common borders, that's why there is no war anymore. I cannot afford. I'm sure the Turkish president just last week would be surprised to hear that Turkish have ruled Indians. I'm sure Indians also be very upset. 600 years. Come on, give me a break. Either you are not mentally present, or you are misbriefed. Oh, come on. You don't have to be talking extempore like me. Have a written speech if you can't. At least have the facts right. I mean, people joke about this thing. If your Prime Minister visits New York, General Assembly, and he's interviewed by the local known channel, and he tells them that, I'm riding in New York and the roads are very bumpy. And the answer is obvious. He said, Mr. Prime Minister, you sound like, a welder in a Bronx, workshop. I feel unhappy. It's Pakistan, it's insult to Pakistan. So we should be knowing what we're talking. We should be doing what is good for Pakistan. And we should be ready to deal with the things hands on. Not that कि मैं खुदकशी कर लूँगा, मैं IMF नहीं जाऊँगा, मैं ये कर लूँगा, मैं वो कर लूँगा, and you do nothing. कुछ कर ही लो यार. I mean, अगर कुछ करने को तो कुछ कर ही लो. So you see the very, listen, देखिए अल्लाह ने काम लेना होता है. You know something, destiny I strongly believe in. Everybody puts in very hard work. Sardar Sahab must be doing, you know, our friend Mr. Nigel must be putting a lot of hard work. Everybody. But you know the result, the outcome is also the sheer luck as well as destiny, what we call. The divine, you know, blessing. So, you know, we had a very clear roadmap in the leadership of, you know, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif that we should achieve 7% of growth, we should have sustainable and inclusive growth, we should have reduction in poverty, we should have per capita income increase, we should have network of, you know, of the highways and communication in Pakistan. We are the only ones who started and actually achieved certain goalposts in the digital and financial inclusion in Pakistan. The bankers are sitting here. I don't know whether you recall that, you know, at my invitation, the global rep of financial, you know, inclusion of the UN is Queen Maxima. She visited Pakistan. She had all the praise what Pakistan did during her tenure and recognized what we delivered. We did the same thing with digital inclusion and the digital rollout, the 3G, the 4G. My friend Sheikh Saab was 2010, 2013. He was the finance minister with the People's Party now, second time in the cabinet. And he couldn't auction, and they had the only budget that they will sell the cyber licenses of 50 million rupees. They couldn't. Then they had 70 million budgeted. In the second last year, they couldn't. We did it in transparent way. The auction, we got 200 million rupees from the same cyber licenses. You see, this is called transparency. It's not me who is saying that Pakistan has gone in corruption index worse than before. I'm sure you would have seen the Transparency International report recently. That Pakistan has lost a few notches, and we are worse now. In last 10 years, the first time we have reversed the, you know, the trend, which is not good for the good omen for the country. You see, these things, as I said, are very, very painful. And, you know, we all wish to see Pakistan moving positively, and we wish to see that Pakistan, you know, achieves higher growth, better per capita income, reduction in poverty. You see, as a consequence of failed economic policies, which include fiscal and monetary, we have almost 2.2 million people more jobless so far. We have, as I said, about 7 million people pushed back in the below poverty line. Now, should we not worry about this thing? I think we should be worrying about these things. At least take a corrective measures. अब मैं जब बोलता था rather, मुझे तो बैन है. I don't want to see giving any view is a Zagda. They're so shit scared. I'm sorry to use this word. And I keep challenging them. Khan Sahab, तुसी भी तो ताड़ी पूरी टीम ही आ जाओ 50 बंदे हम कल ही काफी है. But my condition is live debate. And you have any empire. You know, sometime back, few weeks back, Mr. Moshal Khan, known PTI strong supporter, he phoned me. And I said, I'm ready. He said, are you sure? Okay, yes. You go and tell your friends. Anytime, anywhere. 24 hours notice. But it will be live. Let people see that who has done what. Don't make gimmicks. I'm sure you would have seen gimmicks last couple of weeks. Inflation, we are talking food inflation 24% roughly in rural areas and 20% roughly in urban areas. And what the Prime Minister has decided, he will give loans to open 50,000 shops in the country, $500,000 rupees each for retail daily use items. And the first year he will give 6 billion, which means 12,000 shops. Somebody should make me understand how these 12,000 shops will make change in the pricing in the country. I can't understand. And then he says he will give 15 billion rupees subsidy through utility store on the daily items used. Imagine a country of 220 million. and 15 billion rupees, let's say, assuming he will give, I'm sure he will not give, ultimately. Because everything he has said so far, he has taken U-turn. So he has come on, I'm sure, in the Guinness Books of Record that he is the best U-turn master in the world. So 220 million people with 15 million means 70 rupees per capita. And 70 rupees is 1 kilo atta. What are you playing with? Either he's too innocent and he's totally befooled by his team and misguided, or he's just not, ready to take the situation and take the challenge head on. You can't run the country like this. And frankly, now people have started talking that it might take, I remember in 2013 they used to say all this intelligence institution, it will take 5 to 8 years to get out of the mess. And Allah ka shukr hai, it's all Almighty's divine help. It's true that I was putting 19 hours a day, but it's a divine help which took us within 3 years from that mess. The country had the news that we are going to join G20. My heart bleeds when I see every month our economic indicators further deteriorating. Because I'm sure any Pakistani seeing this would be very concerned that if we do not control the trend, I think it may become, frankly, a very, very serious matter. People ask me, what is the way forward? Is there any hope? I'm basically an optimist person. Can I remind you that Pakistan faced heaviest sanctions, global sanctions, when we detonated in response to the Indian detonation? I can guarantee you that post 9/11, if Pakistan was not a nuclear power, they would have been in serious situation. The two countries' armed forces were eyeball to eyeball for almost 10 months. They could not take courage to trespass the boundaries and the borders because they knew we are nuclear power. And I remember 17th of May 1998, this took place, Indian detonation. 20th and 21st of May, there was WTO meeting, ministerial meeting in Switzerland, Geneva. I was representing as Commerce Minister. I was from day 1, 97 to that date, I was Commerce Minister of Pakistan. My counterpart from UK was Madam Right Honourable Margaret Bucket. And the ministerial meeting was to be attended by Honourable Prime Minister Tony Blair, President of the United States Bill Clinton. So we had a ministerial meeting, and the proposal was that I'm just sharing with these thoughts to just share that you got to be bold enough to fight your country's case. So there are two tiers in WTO. There's an ambassadorial tier and there's a ministerial tier. President Clinton wished to announce in his speech that the 20th century, I'm talking 1998, that in the new millennium, the e-commerce will be duty-free. Now here what? Who will compensate me? I mean, the countries, Western countries would have obviously afforded it and would be happy that they can export to my countries, and my importer would not pay any duty. How could I accept it? How would my economy would be run? And WTO, you even one country can voice and can block anything. It has to be with consensus. So I was engaged by these Western countries, including I remember Ambassador Rita Hayes of the United States. I told her, listen, the developing world cannot afford it. I convened a meeting of the SAARC countries, which obviously included India, and recent detonation had taken place. I was chairman of the SAARC Commerce Minister that year. Pakistan had the chair. So I convened a meeting in Pakistan Embassy. Ramkrishan Hedke, who was my counterpart from India, and earlier he was Chief Minister of a state, So I asked, I said, Ram साहब, ये आपने क्या कर दिया है? वो कहते हैं डॉक्टर साहब आप ही अपना टेस्ट करके आप ही देख लेंगे आपकी जो टॉय है ठीक है कि नहीं है. I'm telling you a informal conversation of 20th of May evening at the Pakistan embassy in Geneva. 7 of us sitting, and the first time we came up with joint resolution and a statement which is very unusual, that A, B, C, D are not acceptable. So I blocked it. I have no regret. In the ministerial meeting, Madam, my counterpart, Margaret Bucket, held my hand and took me to Prime Minister of India at that time, Mr. Tony Blair. So he tells me, Minister, we hope your country will restrain and will not react to Indian detonation. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, can't you see that conventionally we are very, very different than India? We have no choice but to respond. And in those days, next 2-3 days, BBC, I'm sure they would have in their library. And I told in BBC, I said, you have left 2 to 3 million refugees in Pakistan for decades after Cold War, and you never look back. How can we afford to just listen to you that don't detonate, have a $5 billion package, and etc., etc. Mr. Sharif took a right decision. I was accompanied him on 28th of May to the National Defence College, which is now National Defence University. And after presentation given by General Jahangir Karamat, Mr. Prime Minister decided that he would allow to push the detonation experiment, and we did, alhamdulillah. So Pakistan could not afford at that time not to be a nuclear power, and that actually proved to be correct decision post 9/11 particularly. But there is a lot of misunderstanding in the Western world, and I've been defending it. कि जी पाकिस्तान के जो nukes हैं, they can fall in wrong hands. No, as Pakistani, let me tell you, our command and control authority is very strong. In our government, as 2013-15, I was member of the National Command Control Authority, Prime Minister is the chairman, and so the army chiefs and other relevant people. No way. So let me, give the comfort to the West. Pakistan Nuclear Command and Control Authority has very robust reform system during 2013-18. It cannot fall in any wrong hands. It's absolutely safe. So nobody should worry about Pakistan nuclear assets. Pakistan, again on the subject of terrorism, Pakistan has suffered the most. We have about $130 billion losses, economic losses so far, being partner in the war on terror. We have lost 40,000 people, injuries and shahada. So we are one of the biggest sufferers, and we should not be made to suffer more. I think the global world should consider the sacrifices of Pakistan in this regard. And I hope that the FATF issue is resolved in the interest of Pakistan. Let me also express my mind that if we work, we are talking way forward. I still believe, as an optimist, country as a good potential. We have majority of youth in the 220 million population, which is an asset. They should be trained properly, looked after properly, education, social safety expenditure, social sector, health, etc. We have natural resources. We have mineral resources, which are unmatchable. We have coal resources. Imagine you have the entire coal belt extending to the Indian part. The tail is in the Indian part. Ages ago, they have been able to set up a coal-based energy project on that tail end. If it was not Mr. Nawaz Sharif as Prime Minister and PMLN as government, we would still have been sitting. So thanks God, we made our efforts and we got, the energy was working in the We have billions of barrels of petrol in Pakistan, but untapped. We have trillions of cubic feet of gas including shale gas. So I am very optimistic of the future of Pakistan, provided the right-minded people, the right policies, the right way forward, the right action plan, the vision and the implementation. I think we can be a different country. Nobody believes. As I said, in '98, everybody thought that Pakistan is going to melt down after the the sanctions after the nuclear detonation. And the rupee touched in those days, if you recall, 69 rupees to the dollar. I remember I was called on 6th of November 1998, and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said, "Dar Sahab, finance was his because they were go and search the National Assembly library. Look, September 1998 speeches. Our own people are saying that the rupee will touch 100 rupees in December 1998. Imagine if it was 100 in 1998. What would be the position today? I waged war against that. And Alhamdulillah, we rescued. There was no queues in Pakistan during sanctions. There was no shortage of anything. And we came out of woods. And the moment we stabilized, we had 4 months of import bill by June 1999. But then, it needs a long sitting to explain you Carmel episode and the coup d'etat in October 1999. So you see, the country has a future. And likewise in 2013, as I said, people will say 120 rupees and this and that. I mean, who will determine? Please keep in mind, I call and I stand by to my statement, devaluation is mother of economic ills. I can quote you countries which were ruined because of devaluation. If you remember the last tenure of Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, it is the currency attack, and it was known as George Soros fund attack on the currency of Mahathir Mohamad. And it extended to the South Asian countries. These were known as South Asian crisis, currency crisis. We were the only one which were moving other way around because of our enforcement and our reforms. And likewise, Alhamdulillah came out of that problem. Likewise in 2013, we just enforced. I fail to understand the monetary. First you devalue, and by the way, you might have seen few months earlier, there was attack on Turkish currency. President Tayyip Erdogan gave a statement that his currency has been attacked, but he managed it, like Pakistan did. And today, look at Venezuela. Despite oil rich, the inflation is ruining that country. So that's why I call it a man-made crisis. We asked for it. We mismanaged our economy. We have a huge devaluation.